Welcome to the 30-minute hour. It's the personal development podcast for entrepreneurs and executive leaders who are looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday.
It is indeed a happy Monday, and it's about to get a little happier because we're going to be talking to people today about the cybersecurity secrets from the man who secured Super Bowl 50. So, Ted, there's not a lot of people on the planet that can say they've done cybersecurity for a Super Bowl.
No, I don't. Matter of fact, Ed, you're the only person I know. I know a lot. I know a lot of people in cyber, but none that helped you secure Super Bowl 50.
It was interesting. Like I was telling Eric, it was very interesting.
Yeah,
Sure.
we'll get into that, and we'll talk about what it has to do with you, the business owner, you, the business leader. What are some practical things you can take away from all of his experience to help secure your operation and take life to the next level? Let's get right to it. Let's not even
Jump on into it, man. Ed has things to do. Let's go on. Let's jump into it. You got people. They might be getting ready for the, for the hockey championship or World Series,
NBA Finals,
and NBA Finals.
There you go.
They all have cybersecurity issues and need security. There you go. All right, let's get at it. So our guest, he is a cybersecurity executive with a field-tested background and a mission-oriented mindset. From coordinating cybersecurity for Super Bowl 50 to leading M&A integrations across critical infrastructure sectors, he's built a career around solving the hard problems. Please join me in welcoming to the 30-minute hour, Edward Liebig.
Thank you very much. That was nice.
Welcome, man. It's truly an honor to have you on the show. Really want to dig into this. I think we're going to hit some aspects of AI and cybersecurity and things that we really haven't shared before that are going to help our audience in a big way. But let's kind of backtrack. And I'm just curious to know, you were at the College of the Ozarks back in the day. What was your vision for your career during that time as an undergraduate?
Well, it was funny. I kind of fell into what I thought was going to be my career path because I took a job as a yard boy. I was going to cut the grass for a savings and loan. And they were showing me the lawnmower and where the gas was, and somebody ran out from the building and said, "Oh, the electricians just sat down on strike. Does anybody know how to pull cable and terminate RS-232 cables?" So I was bold. I said, "Yeah, I can do it." I didn't know what it was. As I walk in the building, what's an RS-232 cable? Well, I'll figure it out. So I followed that summer with the installation of this mainframe. And I was just fascinated. And then it got into the programming, and I was less fascinated. But still, it was pretty cool. But it was kind of, at that time, not in my interest. I like doing things with my hands, right? So when I got to School of the Ozarks, I also helped out in the print shop at the same time. So now I had printing and computers, and it was weighing which way do I go. So when I got to School of the Ozarks, I was all set. I was going to open a print shop. I was going to be my own mom and pop print shop. I was going to buy a press and do my own thing. I was qualified on an AD Dick and a chief printing head, T-head. So I was ready to go. But desktop publishing came up. We started having printers that would start doing quality paper. There was computerized plate separations. We got to tour a facility on that. I knew that was the way it had to go. So I think when I went in, I had a path, or I thought I had a path, but I paid attention to my surroundings and I paid attention to the horizon, and I made a good choice. So informed choices is what I learned from that.
Informed choices. Yeah. And then, so it's interesting. I mean, like cybersecurity, obviously, as we know it today, wasn't even a thing. And I'm always fascinated by the fact that, sometimes the thing that you're supposed to do, or that the thing that you end up doing hasn't even been invented yet.
Yeah, right. That's right. I was what they called MIS at the time for a law firm, and that was before CIO was even a thing. So it's evolved. Everything's evolved, and if you keep your eye on the horizon, you're going to find opportunity.
Yeah, and I don't think it's as necessary. If someone's coming out of school today or in school, it's not as necessary just to know exactly what you want to do. That's not always vital to your success, right? If you, like you said, if you're keeping your eye on the horizon, things can just follow your interests, but things can evolve.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I think that's what I tell my students too. I always say, you don't necessarily want to search for your path. I'm of the mindset: do anything that sounds remotely interesting. Your path will find you. Because the more you do, the more you learn hands-on. You figure out what you really like and what you gravitate towards. You also figure out what you don't like. You may think you like cybersecurity, and then you jump into a role that says cybersecurity, and it's very mundane. It's very limited. It's very repetitive. Well, that's not all of cybersecurity. So you made a choice on limited data. Find out more about the field. Find out the breadth of the field. There's plenty to do on east, west, and up and down in cybersecurity. So there's plenty of roles. Do more.
Absolutely. Good. So if you could go back in time and be a mentor to that undergraduate version of yourself, what advice would you give?
Well, like I said, try everything that's remotely interesting. It's one of the reasons I joined the Navy. The Navy, people don't realize the Navy's run differently than the other services. Because you're out on a ship, there's no calling for reinforcements, which means that ship needs to learn everybody else's job. And I love that about it, because cross-training is just wonderful, because I know what my colleague's job is, then I know how to present my part to them much better. If I know what my colleague communicates like, I know much better how to communicate with them. So I need to know more of the language they speak and the job they do, similar to IT versus OT, and the differences in the disciplines. Even when you say cybersecurity, it differs between IT and OT. There's a language barrier, language difference. And you have to learn that. You have to understand that and understand the impacts of what you're saying in this case.
But let's talk about that just for some of the people that may not be necessarily IT experts or experts in this particular field. But what are the different? Break it down for us. What are the differences between IT and OT?
Well, the differences are really IT, information technology. You deal with it every day. Everybody has a basic understanding. It's file services. You're moving data. You're moving bits and bytes and data of information. Well, in the operational technology side, you're moving molecules. The end state is you're making something happen physically, kinetically, and in the world, something's changing. And because of that, you're bound by the laws of physics and all the other things that don't necessarily apply directly in the data movement. The consequences are different and the focus is different. So in IT, your CIA triad of confidentiality, integrity, and availability is king. Whereas in OT, it's really availability and safety are the prime targets that you're looking at. So there's a different mindset, and then there's different processes about managing the technologies and even managing the process of security. So it's a growing field. This is one of the reasons why I want to mention that, Eric, because right now, if I were to look back on my life and say, where are we today? Where is opportunity today? Where does it look like today like it looked like when you were a kid? We're where we are, the same place we were in 1994 in OT, where we were in IT when I was a kid in 94. That's your area of opportunity, if you ask me. That's the growing field. That's the one that's emerging and morphing as we speak. It's getting better every day. So that I think is something you should get.
It's interesting. I always, think about like when you were talking about back in the 90s, right? And people, they were all like, yeah, I'm not IT, right? I do this, I'm not IT. And it was just such a kind of a mystical thing, IT, right? And then you think about today, like everyone is IT, right? I mean, you have kids that are, setting up the router at the house, creating applications, like in the terms that we talk about, cybersecurity, all that kind of stuff. It's not too many of those things that people have not at least heard of, have some exposure to, compared to back then. It was kind of like, yeah, there was the IT guy or the IT lady, and that was that person knew everything. They knew what to do, and if something was down, and oftentimes what that was is we just turned it off and on, right? Yeah.
Give away the secret.
That was a secret, right? That was a secret. And then the word got out, and people like, "Well, did you turn it off and on?" So I turned it off and on, and I recycled the processor.
Yeah, there you go. Recycled the processor. That's right.
That's right.
That's funny.
Absolutely. So you're the founder and CEO of Yoink Industries. So who's your target customer? How do you serve them?
Well, Yoink Industries is a conglomeration of 3 different companies. I've just launched OT SOC Options just a little bit ago, back in November. So I'm just now building up traction momentum there. And in OT SOC Options, I'm looking to help critical infrastructure manufacturers build smarter, more resilient systems, use the right tools in the right instance to get the best visibility across their enterprise, not just their OT systems, not just their IT systems, but blend the security program across the enterprise so that everything's measured commensurate to their risk. So that's kind of what I'm driving with OT SOC Options. We got another arm called Lellie Group. The Lellie Group is my wife's company. She helps investment advisors, hedge funds, mutual fund complexes. She does SEC rule and regulatory reviews. So it's all about compliance, making it manageable, clear, strategic, so they can focus on their business. And then I've got Davy Jones Excavating. Now that's our way of giving back to the community, because East Central Missouri was just hit by a bunch of tornadoes. I don't know if you saw. One came about 2,000 feet from our house. We were very, very lucky, but our neighbors weren't. So I've got a track loader. We're providing land clearing services at extremely discounted or free to our neighbors, to our community members. If I've got some expenses, of course, I'll pass those to you. But as much as we can do for free, we're trying to help that right now as well. So that's kind of what Yoink Industries is comprised of. Who knows where we'll go from there? We might start making products soon. Who knows?
Excellent. Good stuff. All right. So let's, this is the elephant in the room. Like, people are like on the edge of their seat wanting to know about this. So how did this opportunity to coordinate the cybersecurity for the Super Bowl, like how did that come across your desk? Like, how did that happen?
Well, so it was really kind of funny how it came around, because I was working with the critical infrastructure, oil and gas. I was with chemicals, doing a lot of stuff around. But the Levi Stadium had just been built, and it was going to be the smart stadium of the future, right? They had access points all over. They were inviting all of the public, connect our Wi-Fi, shared files, shared data, pictures, web, videos, everything. They wanted everything flowing through their systems. But the city of Santa Clara, Garav, a great guy, still talk to him today, wanted to make sure that we had a plan, because the stadium was technically on the city's backbone. So he had some foresight and said, hey, we need a cyber plan just in case something leaks out into the city on this. So great foresight. And that was something that wasn't really on the radar until this event, when we had geopolitical concerns about terrorists, both inside and outside the country. We were thinking, wow, what if Al-Qaeda puts up a video on the Jumbotron? All these scenarios are going through people's heads with this connected stadium. So So we were called in to orchestrate all the moving parts, and there were a lot of parts.
That's awesome. I mean, that's got to be something to get that call. I mean, what's it like to get this call? Now you have this big opportunity that you can put on your resume, pretty much.
Well, so I mean, there's a big worry about the public events starting to become targets, and then all of a sudden, Super Bowl 50 was right on the horizon. So, I was lucky enough that I picked the right team. That's what I'm so thankful for. Because when I called my team together, Robert Sutton was the guy I brought in to lead the team, and he brought his expertise from the Navy. Go Navy, once again. We came up with a ConOps document that tied together FBI, DHS, first responders, NFL, broadcast network teams from CBS. Everybody knew they had the same sheet of paper that said, if something should happen, oh, and by the way, this is what we're looking for. These are the things we think are anomalies that we want to see. If these things happen, here's who to call and what their role is and how they play into the bigger picture. So we all had a playbook that wasn't really something that was put together until I think this event. It became then what they had called then large significant event template going forward for the ConOps. So I was very proud of that work.
So can you share a little bit about what kind of the physical security aspect, how that came to play as far as in this information security piece that you're working on?
Yeah. So like anything, you want to look at your threats holistically and also by vector. So you want to make sure that you can identify all the vectors of attack or concern, the vectors of concern, and then stage accordingly all of the safeguards or controls that are in the way of the event. We call this a bow tie threat matrix. You guys may have heard of this. But you put together a bow tie threat matrix that has all of your attack vectors or concerns, all the controls that you look at going in to the event. And then you look on the other side of the event and say, what are my controls that lessen the hurt or mitigate the effect of consequence? And that way you know exactly what you're dealing with on the other end or what to brace for on the other end. By looking at it that way and by looking at the physical attributes of the stadium, where it's at, what are the physical boundaries, what are the street barriers, and where can we set up barricades and perimeters, we had bands of access points layered away from the stadium where you'd have increasing diligence for vetting out the people coming to the event. That was a very good innovative crowd control technique that should have been better exercised in some events recently.
Okay, awesome. So what are some of the cybersecurity strategies? I know this was in 2016. But are there any cybersecurity strategies that you used back then at the Super Bowl that you would recommend for businesses today?
Just exactly what I outlined. Use a bow tie metrics. Know what your threats are. Know what your likely threats are. I'm not saying ignore everything else, but know what's most likely for you to happen and think through those scenarios. And I don't mean think through the scenario end to end. Think through the scenario so you have stages where you can make good decisions. Make a decision-making matrix where you can say, if this happens, here's my options. If this happens, here's my other options. Start thinking through options and not ends. And that way, when time comes and you need to actually follow that playbook, you have pivot points already built in where you have options defined. So I would say look at it holistically, use a threat metrics to measure it, see what your controls are, and then look at the controls at their effectiveness and go from there. And look at the whole threat at that point.
So I'm going to ask you questions, kind of two questions. First is, for our listeners out there, everybody's hearing AI, right? Everything is AI.
Yeah.
So give us your definition of AI.
Okay.
And then two, how the role of you see cyber playing into that.
Yeah. Well, right now AI is machine learning. It's glorified machine learning. I don't the ability to make aware, conscious decisions has hopefully not been met. According to Elon, that's going to be right around the corner. But right now, it's still glorified machine learning. However, because of the large language models and some of the other things that are coming into play. This other ways of looking at problems are coming into play. You're starting to get very verbose capabilities, more so than we had before. And the one thing I like about AI is its ability to pick out anomalous data from very large pools of data. And what that means for me, in my mind, and this is where years ago when I was walking around the plant, I was like, why can't we just track all this and pull out the anomalous physical behaviors? And they said, well, nobody can watch all that at once. But now with the addition of AI and the processing powers we have, that's becoming closer to reality with digital twin technologies and the AI coupled on top of that. So that's where my OT SOC options, that's where I'm beating the drum and saying, right now is when we need to be thinking about this and moving towards what we used to think was a panacea, or not even a panacea, but a utopia, if you will. Now it's actually can be attainable. You know that.
Awesome. So we're talking about AI. What are some of the ways that you're seeing? Because it seems like the cyber bad guys are just getting more and more sophisticated. So what ways are you seeing these cyber criminals using AI to launch these attacks? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, so back in the day, back at when we were watching Super Bowl, we knew what we were watching for. Disruption of communications. We were looking for malware. We were looking for videos, bad videos, bad content. We knew what we were looking for. But right now, because of AI, because the ability to do so much so quickly, you've got adaptive, personalized messaging. You've got phishing campaigns that are identical to real message formats. No longer can you pick it out because it looks funny. These are deep fakes are coming into play. You're going to have to really start being concerned about scrubbing all of your information, looking for deep fakes fairly soon, and putting in deep fake technology so you can detect them. So that's coming on the horizon. It's a changing world.
I'm even talking to this. Like I'm even noticing, like on social media, like on a Facebook, they always have these things where you can use AI to see what you would have looked like in the 1950s, or you can make now that the latest thing you can use AI technology to make a doll out of yourself. What's your guidance on that? Because from what my understanding is, a lot of that can be used to get your data and steal identity theft and other things too.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of different things that can. I mean, she got stereocryptography, where you take I don't even think I'm using the right term at that point. Where you embed messages in pictures, in the pixels of the pictures. That's always been around, or has been around for a long time. AI is just another iteration. We're going to have to get smarter at doing the deepfake detection technologies, looking for being able to filter that out, or at least flag it. I don't think it should be banned by any means, because it's a tool. It's a tool we created. We just have to put guardrails on how you use it. I think that stands for any AI. There's a lot of portals that are using AI-generated detection technologies to allow or deny content based on whether it was put together through GPT or some other means, or large language models. And while I find that okay for today because it's so new and fresh, it's a tool. When calculators were invented, when I was a kid, we couldn't use calculators. We had to learn how to do it, and I get that. But this tool is taking off, and we're going to have to learn to use it. We're going to have to learn to embrace it. So I say we look at the rules and not the tool. We allow the tool and we tweak the rules. That's my soapbox for that.
Okay. All right. So what advice do you have for the person who's looking to kind of level up their AI knowledge because they're concerned that their job could get replaced down the road, and they want to stay viable and they want to stay relevant?
Yeah, you said absolutely what the advice is. Your job may be replaced by AI, which means your job needs to be different. So look to retrain yourself at what's interesting, or even look at your job and say, how would this be replaced? and what would AI need to do? And then you become the expert on training the AI, because AI isn't magic. It's not going to learn your job. You have to train it for your job, or somebody has to train it for your job. And by looking at it that way, you can then get in front of the technological trend and find your next home based on what you're doing now, or find your next home based on something completely different. But my biggest life learn, my takeaway from this whole thing, learn something new every day. That's it. Learn something new every day, and learn it outside your comfort zone or outside your current focus, because you're going to expand your views. You're going to expand, and something else might be interesting. And while I'm doing this today, look at that over there.
No, that's good. I like that. And something else I think about too, and welcome your thoughts, is that one of the things at this point that AI can't really duplicate is that whole interpersonal warmth. So I think, if you're in business, the better you are at connecting, the better you are at the whole being relational. It's AI at this point can't really duplicate that.
No, they can't. No, they can't. I told you I jotted down some notes. So I had something I was going to say about my company that sounded way too sales pitchy, but I was going to say something at the end. I was going to say something at the end that my dad always taught me. My dad always said, Ed, people don't do business with companies. People do business with people, and be that person they want to come to.
Exactly.
So there you go. There's your advice.
So true. So true.
All right. So Ed, what's next on the horizon for you?
Well, right now, I was just asked to help with the Idaho National Labs in their CIE, the education portion. So I'm happy to volunteer for that. We're looking to grow some business. Like I said, I just started O2 SOC Options. I just started a blog series. I'm going through the MITRE publication, the 11 Strategies of Cybersecurity Operations Centers. It's the book from which I teach my course at Washington University, but I'm not teaching it. What I'm doing is I'm taking the principles of Secure Operations Center and how IT views Secure Operations Centers, because that's what it was written for an IT SOC, and applying that to OT, operational technology, and looking for what are the things that an operational center technology, operational center function could perform in OT that would help promote better, faster, more efficient operations. Because in my mind, that's what makes for cybersecurity in operational technology is bulletproof operations, end to end. So that's what I'm focusing on. I keep looking over here because that's where your picture is.
So Ed, you talk about security operations centers. So for those of our listeners that are like, yeah, what is that? Like, what is security operations?
So everybody's seen them in the movies where they got this dark room and you got 25 people sitting around. There's screens everywhere and there's charts and graphs and they're all looking. They're going, oh, we've got an attack coming. It's not like that. It's not like that. There are some operation centers that are still operated with central control monitoring solutions like that. But in OT, it's going to be morphing itself these days. You're going to start seeing it more as a function, an orchestrated function between talent and technologies. So that, like I said, so that you're improving operational efficiencies while looking at secure conditions, your security conditions across the enterprise. So Secure Operations Center are the people that look after security, and cybersecurity is different than just general IT security or just security itself. So cybersecurity is looking for malicious actors, looking for people trying to break your stuff. Security or IT security is hardening your stuff so people can't break it. Consider that like a cyber hygiene or putting in patches and hardening your systems and doing the governance risk and compliance or the governance resiliency and compliance, however you want to couch that. It's looking after those components specifically with that lens on, that focus.
So Ed, what can you tell us about that whole thing around zero trust? You hear about that now.
Yeah, zero trust is a concept where you don't just let somebody let an entity or a person in based on a one-time check of who they are. This is a constant heartbeat, if you will. I am who I am, and I'm telling you I'm this person. I'm validating I'm this person. I'm telling you I'm this person. I'm valid. So it's almost a heartbeat between your objects and your users that will continually look for the credentials that make sense, whatever you configure to be your ZTNA driver, to say, I don't trust you. Who are you? All the time. And that's how you can think of it. Or at least that's how I think of it. Where that falls down is if all the components can't do that. So you're seeing this ZTNA everywhere mentality, which is that's okay in IT, and it's manageable for most of IT. But in OT, it only goes to a certain level or a certain extent. Because when you get out towards the endpoints, those endpoints are mechanical devices. They don't have any brains. It might be a lever that goes this way and that way. That's all it does. It doesn't have any smarts. It's the signal getting to it that you have to look at. And it's the controller that sent that signal, and it's all the pieces in between. And they too may not be reachable. So ZT are authenticatable, I should say. They can't authenticate like a user. So ZTNA only has a certain limit in applications in that scenario.
All right. So now, Ed, we're at Ted's favorite part of the show. The segment is called Write This Down. So we each go around and share at least one takeaway from today's episode that the people need to write down so they can level up. So Edward, you're the guest of honor. What do you feel that people need to write down from today's episode?
I said it earlier, learn something new every day and learn it outside of your current focus. And that way your horizon broadens automatically.
I think that's great advice. Everybody needs to write that down. All right, Ted.
It's a tough act to follow. Just listening to, kind of Ed just take on just all these different cyber concepts. It just makes it sound so easy to understand. And I'm looking at this from a standpoint of those that are trying to get into cybersecurity. I hear about, because it just sounds cool, right? Everybody's like, man, cybersecurity, like that's what I want to do. And I think that, as I spoke about earlier, is that, now more than ever, I think it's, most people have a general technology foundation, right? Like they most they've heard about file sharing, they've heard about, authentication, they've heard about the cloud, they've heard about AI and all this without even going to class.
You're welcome.
Without even
40 years screaming that.
yeah, without even going to class. And so now those opportunities are out there, and and I think it's a great time. I think that's a great space for there to be. There's never going to be a shortage of cyber warrior opportunities out there. And so, as you said, just to focus on learning, and it's a good field, it's a highly paid field, it's one that's ever changing, and and who knows, one day you may be able to provide security for the next Super Bowl.
That's right.
For sure. Yep, write that down. Yeah, I mean, so my contribution to this piece is just the need to just always be evolving, always adapting. I think Ted mentioned earlier that, at one point, if there was an issue, there's one guy in your office that you called.
Right.
The guy would come in and he was the answer guy when it came to IT. But now everybody's that. Everybody knows how to turn the computer on and off now to reboot.
They got that part. They know how to
fix the problem, right?
Reset the process.
Yeah, there you go. but that just shows you just the need to adapt and evolve and just constantly be improving your skills. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, really focusing in on like emotional intelligence. I just think that's going to be more and more important. And that'll be a way to, because people, especially if you're in like a retail business, people there's no reason for somebody to tolerate someone who's not nice, someone who's
No,
not
you're
friendly,
right.
when they can get what they want at the push of a button.
Oh, that was a trend for a while, Eric, where you'd call that desktop guy and he'd come in with an attitude as he was smarter than everybody in the room. Yeah, I put a kibosh to that quick.
Exactly.
No, my team weren't allowed to act like that.
Yeah. So yeah, we have to always be adapting and evolving.
Yep, absolutely.
Everything's constantly changing. So Edward, yeah, this has been a fantastic episode. How can people best connect with you, get access to your blog, find more out about your company?
Right now, I'm limited on my exposure, so I'm taking connections through LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with people, chat over that forum. You can reach me by email at my Washington University. It's Liebig at wustl.edu. Welcome to send me an email. Happy to talk. And check out my blog that I just started. Search LinkedIn for OT SOC options. You'll see my company logo. It looks like I designed it after my family crest, so it looks like a crest. It's red and white. You'll see it. So.
Excellent. Well, Edward, thank you for sharing everything that you shared today. And speaking of sharing, for those of you watching and listening, don't forget to share the show.
Share the show. Share the show.
Don't keep this great information to yourself. And don't forget, you can listen to us on the podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Don't forget to hit that follow or subscribe button. That way you'll never miss a future episode. Thank you again to Edward Liebig. That's our time for this week's episode. And until next time, have a great one.
Thank you. Pleasure meeting everybody.